Go in a second.
And glasses, John?
Same style, different color, black instead of gray.
He has 12 of them, so.
Yeah, like every other house that has readers everywhere.
One for each day.
Depends on what mood I'm in. Good evening, everybody. Let's see here, make sure I'm 4 inches from the mic. My name is John Lohr. I am the FinCom Chair. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Today is March 26th at 7:02, according to my phone. Before we get started, I'd like to have all the members introduce themselves, starting off to my left.
Darius. Joyce McCarty. Jody Garzon.
Michael Crum.
Kathy McInnes.
Ruby.
Thank you. I think we don't have anyone in Zoom land right now. So I'd like to remind everybody here, as well as anyone listening out there, that there's multiple ways to access the Finance Committee's material and information. You can watch us on your local access channel at home, either Comcast Channel 6 or Verizon Channel 38, or you can watch it through millismedia.org. You can also watch it live streaming on YouTube. And just like everybody else that's here, you can attend it live if you want, which is highly recommended. Last, all the material that we have in front of us is located on the Finance Committee's webpage. So if you want to look at some of the documents, feel free, you can go there for that material. And just as a reminder to not only members, but our speakers tonight, if you could make sure you're 4 inches away from the microphone so that the media channels can pick up our voices, that would be great. So after all that housekeeping, why don't we dive right into it? Jonathan Berry, Capital Planning Committee report.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be here. We come 4 inches.
That's right.
Away, give or take.
We don't audit, don't worry.
So this is my semi-annual visit to the Finance Committee, so it's good to see you all again. We've put together, our Capital Planning Committee has put together our report for the upcoming May town meeting. Just so for quick background, so the Capital Planning Committee has been in place for about 8 years now. And our job is to review the various capital requests that come forward through the town for each town meeting and try to prioritize those based on the set of criteria that we've established over the past several years. So this time around, we had 7 items come in front of us, which I'll get to them in order. 5 of them we noted as the highest priorities for the town, with a total cost of about $338,000. We had 1 medium priority at about $98,000, and then 1 was a lower priority for $42,000. The highest priority items that you list on the back page of the report. So there's a new vehicle for animal control. The existing vehicle is quite out of date and really is inadequate for the job at hand to manage the animal control. A couple items from the fire department. They need to replace some radio box receivers that are sort of critical to communication for the fire department. And also a UTV, sort of like an ATV, but a utility vehicle, and a trailer for that, and also some repairs to the Brush 2 truck. This new UTV will actually be a long-term replacement for the Brush 2 truck. It's hard to say quickly. And then with the library, as part of their capital kind of maintenance plan, they have something they've had on their schedule for the last couple of years, some HVAC repairs and upgrades. Currently, there are some issues with HVAC there that they've been aware of, that they've had on the list. We've known about it, so now it's time to do it. And we thought that was a high priority. And then finally, for the school, 1 special education van. The school has done a good job over the past couple of years getting everything sort of organized with regards to vehicles and transportation. And more or less, they're going to be looking for 1 van per year for the future as old ones sort of roll off in terms of too much mileage and wear. That'll vary a little bit, but roughly speaking, we're looking at probably 1 van a year for the foreseeable future. The medium priority was a dump truck for the DPW to replace, one of this sort of medium-sized dump truck, that can do a lot of various, tasks around town. You know, we certainly, it's an important piece of equipment. We didn't have it at the highest on the list. It will eventually need to be replaced. We felt that it just didn't quite meet the highest priority criteria right now, but it is certainly an important priority for them. And then finally, at the lower end was one request from the building department. So they were inquiring about getting a car for their specific to the building inspector, which we don't currently have. That currently building inspectors use their own cars to do their jobs. And we determined that was a lower priority for the town, that dedicated car for the building inspector. So those are the items there. I'm happy to take any questions on that. The one other thing I'll note about, or maybe two other things about the report I'll note. So obviously everybody's quite aware of the building project, the middle high school renovation project. Our committee met with the school building department a few weeks ago, had a really good discussion with them. So, you know, we were up to speed as a committee on everything that's going on there. We had a placeholder, and we've had a few placeholders in our report over the past couple of years. We had a placeholder of roughly $90 million in our bigger capital planning spreadsheet that we keep track of everything. We refine that a little bit based on the latest information, down to the higher end of the range of post MSBA funding. So that's $82.7 million. So our overall capital sum is a little bit lower than it was last time because of that. So that's one adjustment we've made there. And I'll just note our total capital needs that we've got identified at this point is about $123 million, which is documented here, separated between a few different areas. Obviously, the school is by far the largest one of those. That's roughly 2/3 of the total is for the school. One other thing I'll just note, just for information for the committee, we had a software vendor come into the capital planning committee earlier in our cycle here. They're working with the town on various upgrades to software, and we're quite interested in getting a module with that software that would actually do a lot of the better tracking of capital. So we put forth a request to the select board to at least our 2 cents that we'd love to have that software. So we may see some better reports in the future if we get that and can now better summarize kind of how all the capital, we can slice and dice it different ways. So I'll pause there and happy to take any questions.
Hang on, Pete, you were first, go ahead.
Mr. Barry, thank you for all your service, your years of service volunteering for the committee. I know you've done it since inception, so thank you. I got a quick question on the 123 million in change of total requirements. How many years is that spread over?
Yeah.
And can you just clarify that those, whether or not those projects have been prioritized, they're not all the highest needs, just for the full picture?
Sure, yeah. So the 123, well, I'd say 10 years, but that's probably not exactly right because there's 10 years of no, as well as we can, no items for the various departments. But there are a number of items that are sort of in an indefinite column. So for example, town fields, you know, that's an item we've got on there to upgrade town fields. We don't really know when that would happen. So we have an item there that is sort of an indefinite, you know, we're not saying, oh, that's going to happen in 3 to 5 or 10 years. So I'll say 10 years, but there's a little bit of an asterisk next to that because there are some items that have been identified that we aren't really sure that they would be done in the next 10 years or not.
Thank you.
You had a second part to your question.
And I assume that they're not all prioritized. They could be
They're not
low
all
need,
prioritized. No.
highest priority need.
No, not at this point. There's probably about 200 or so items on that list right now. So no, we sort of prioritize them as they come through, more or less. I mean, there are maybe a handful that we've identified a couple of years out, the priority, but for the most part, we do them as they come.
And then maybe just one last comment is that items come off of the list and they also get added to the list.
They
So
do.
the list
It's a
is
fluid list for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So the senior center is an example that eventually came off. It was held.
That's right.
For maybe a year or so after.
Yeah, we had it on there for a couple of years, and as that process went through, eventually we took it off once, it was not, a kind of a live project, as it were. Now that could very well go back on, you know.
Thank you.
You bet. Joyce?
Thank you. And I do want to commend you on how well you present. And so if you're getting this machine or whatever to correlate it for you, fine, but you do a great job.
Thank you.
I do have a question as far as the vans. You mentioned
Yes.
that, a new one per year. How many are in the fleet?
I believe it's 19, if I remember correctly. I think a couple of those are sort of backup ones. So, I mean, the school department would know better, but I think, just going off memory, I think there's like 17 kind of prime ones and a couple of backups.
So these will be purchased versus leased? Because I asked only because the police do have their way of doing it, and I didn't know if that was
Yeah,
viewed at all.
I believe, that's a good question. I
Yeah,
believe they
it's-
haven't, yeah,
I'll stay here, you stay there.
all right.
Identify yourself, please.
Craig Schultz, former FinCom, current select board.
Thank you.
On the committee.
All right, good.
330 Plain Street. The school, van will either be leased or purchased depending on what's more, that's a uses of fund that this committee, capital planning, evaluates the needs. The select board determines how we're going to pay for it, whether it's a borrowing, whether it's a cap out of the budgets, or whether it's a lease out of the budgets. That's all to be determined. I don't want to speak out of turn on this one, but it is determined each year, and it could be different each year.
Determined each year whether it be leased or whether it be purchased?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, depending on available funds, most likely leased, but I'm not gonna stick.
Oh, no,
my
that's
neck out on
fine.
this one right
that's
now.
fine. And so it'll be 19 every year and then roll over.
Yeah, basically, so that they were, they've kind of gotten caught up. They were probably a little behind, I suppose,
Thank
on
you,
my
Craig.
kind of fleet, upkeep,
Mhm.
I'd say. And I think they've kind of got caught up where now they have at least a somewhat predictable cycle that they foresee. So yeah, with the car might, I don't know if they last 19 years per se.
No, but they're 19, so each year.
So
Yeah,
it's gonna
it'll just
have
keep
so
them
many
rolling
miles on
over.
it that it's not really usable. to put a new one purchasing it.
And the other thing with the Chevy Blazer, I know that this is just a low priority and that
Yeah.
you're mentioning it, but at our last meeting when the gentleman was here, our new building guy was here, inspector was here, I had asked about the COA car that had been donated, if that could be used, and, because it's not always used, it's for the COA donated it to the,
Mhm.
us, the town.
Yeah.
Thank you for laughing,
Yeah.
what word? Donated it to the town, and it just makes sense to use something that's already here that isn't getting used a lot. And I believe Mike was gonna look into that or address that at a future time, so. Is
That's
that,
good to know.
That's correct. We're looking into it.
okay,
Yeah, that's news to me. So good to know that there is maybe another option there.
okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. One on the animal control vehicle. Is this the price, the estimated cost before we split the cost of Medway?
Yes, so that's the price
Okay.
before. So Midway would pay half.
Okay,
Roughly, exactly how that gets paid, I think is TBD per Mike, but, yeah, all in, it'd be split halfway.
and then the dump for the DBW, I should have asked Jim when he was here, but I didn't think of it. Is this a gas, not a diesel, right? Because
This is
we are not
a-
allowed to buy diesel anymore.
It's a gas hybrid. It's not diesel. The diesel was out.
Yeah.
Was outlawed.
Although I think this truck might have been small enough that it
What?
wasn't necessarily subject to the diesel
Okay.
rule.
Correct.
I thought this was diesel. I thought that's why he did it,
I
because
think it might be diesel.
it is
Right,
diesel,
because it was
because
the
that's
last
why he
time
got
we
it in
could do
fast
it.
enough, because it was gonna
We
be
got it.
outlawed after
Okay,
that.
okay.
That was the last of.
That was the last time.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That was,
So that was last year in November. There was
Fall.
a big dump truck.
Yeah.
Big guy that was, he bought one before because it was gonna be very difficult for him to purchase an electric one after that, and the cost would have been significantly more. This is I guess what I would call a small dump truck, which is, like a real big pickup truck on the back,
Sounds like, looks like.
So I don't recall if it's a diesel, to be honest. I don't think it was, but I'm not sure. You guys might
I'm
remember.
thinking it's a gasoline. but
Yeah,
it's
I'm pretty sure. I'll take a look while we're talking here.
And then just lastly, just to clarify for the sped van, it's gonna be one a year, barring whether or not the needs change.
Ex-
Either way, we'd need to have more or wouldn't need to. If we have more children that require a single transportation van.
That's right. So I
Okay.
think today the need, they believe is, 19 covers it with the
Okay.
primaries and a couple of backups. Right, if the special education, if we had more students that needed more transportation, they might need more than 19 to
Okay.
cover it. That's certainly possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
may I please?
Sure.
Where is the request that for your software? What account is that? Because I've heard you requested for a few years.
Yeah, so it would actually be part of the budget. So it's not really a capital item per se. It's something that the town administration would cover under their existing budget.
All right,
So it's not capital per se.
I would just like to emphasize that it's been asked for many years, as you know, Mr. Chair. Maybe it's time that the finance committee recommend that it be purchased.
Oh, yeah. And
Whatever good that is.
for the software?
Yes.
Correct. It would be very beneficial. Jonathan's done a phenomenal job,
Exactly.
mastering a
Every year.
spreadsheet. But the demo that, the gentleman did with the CPC and showing what you can do, you can slice and dice all those schedules, deterioration, amortization, when the vehicles come off and other equipment, but town administrator, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, Town Administrator, Mike Kaczynski, just to let you know, we have asked the IT director to add that to his budget.
Great,
So that will be part of his budget when it's fully submitted.
perfect, thank you for that.
There you go. Now
That
you'll have a
makes
lot of
sense.
time.
Learn new things.
Also, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
It's just a comment, not for you, Mr. Barry, but the school committee presented a dire need for sped drivers, van drivers. And I'm wondering if we're buying a van, but there's no one to drive it, and is this a purchase that could be made in the fall? Once you get some people on, and you've already got
Yeah.
11, 17 vans.
I'd probably say the driver's a school issue, right?
Okay,
But
right.
the vehicles are following their equipment schedule. I'm not trying to put words in your
Yeah,
mouth,
I
but
think that's-
essentially, from a
I get it,
capital
I get
standpoint.
it. Just
Yeah.
sitting there with no one driving in, just wondering
Right.
what's the best use of funds.
Right.
I would suspect they would use the older vans and leave them off and start using the newer vans. So if they didn't have enough drivers, they'd just eliminate the older vans and use the
Yeah,
newer ones.
16 drivers, I think you
Yeah.
would have the 3 oldest vans, as the spares.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Just a couple comments here. I have the DPW request here. I can't tell if it's gas or not, but I'm assuming it's gas,
I thought it was diesel.
but maybe.
It's not a. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I remember.
I thought I could find it in the specs real quick, but I
It was
can't.
Subject to the new law that requires.
That's what we wanted to get in.
So,
Yeah.
that's all I can recall.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious, but would require like to plug in or what was, you know what I mean, like it's.
Yeah.
It's a 6.6 liter V8, so it's probably gas. Yeah.
Go to your own.
So just to refresh everybody's memory in terms of the process of capital planning, now that we have all these different ranked items, where does it go from here?
So where it goes from here is I will be speaking with the select board next week. And again, we're a information provider, I guess, for lack of a better description. So hopefully this is information that will be helpful to the select board and to you all as you're working out the town warrant and your, recommendations to the town or whether we should, purchase these things or not. So we'll talk to the select board, we'll finalize the report. This is still a draft, just FYI, but so we're gonna formally vote on this next week as a committee. We'll finalize it, provide it to you. You'll typically publish it in your report. So that's how the town will get a hold of it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sean, for coming in tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody,
Good to see ya.
Have a good night.
Say hi to Wendy.
All right, moving on to the human resources review, Mary. You can have a seat if you want, right there at the microphone.
Either one.
I know I have a lot of questions, so this might take.
I'll sit down then.
Get comfortable.
I also want to see the plane.
Perfect.
Everybody.
Good, how are you? So I know, let me jump in real quick. So I know, we have the document that was created in terms of the recommendations, and things like that. And some folks know who you are, some don't, or not as much, but if you just kind of start from those beginning in terms of identify who you are, what your company does, and how we got here, and then we can dive into the details of the report.
Okay, great. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
4 inches.
There you go.
Thank
You're
you.
in charge. I've never been accused of not being heard.
Okay.
So I'm, you know, always so hesitant.
Spell it out, you're fine.
There you
Go ahead.
There you go. Well, good evening. My name is Mary Icardi. I lead the HR practice for the Collins Center for Public Management. We are a center within the McCormick School of Government at UMass Boston. I have been with the center just 1 year after it was formed, so I've been there over 15 years. The HR practice encompasses anything you can imagine is HR. We do a lot of HR reviews. We do executive recruitments. My colleague, I think, did one for you, right? And done work for the town before with your personnel policies. And even before I was with the Collins Center, I did a little work when Charlie Aspinall was here. And we do everything from classification compensation study programs. We do succession planning reviews, a lot of workforce development, training, development, coaching, that sort of thing. One of the areas that the Collins Center also does, we have all different practice areas. I lead HR, but we have a finance practice. We have a governance practice. We do charter reviews, bylaw reviews. We have IT and systems. A new wave of interest, not in this area, but in Western Mass is, we don't call it regionalization because that's the R word. We call it shared services. It sounds better. It makes people feel better that we're not giving up power and authority. And it really needs to be working in areas of ambulances in rural areas. We're doing a lot of districts for ambulance work. Not so much core services for municipalities. This is a sophisticated organization. You know, we're not looking to, erase lines between municipalities, but that's why we call it shared services, because the entity remains itself. So you name it, we do it. My background is I am now officially well over 30 years in the municipal world. Prior to the Collins Center, I did a little bit of independent consulting. The job I quit 21 years ago, I know because my son is going to be 21, was the HR director in the town of Watertown. I was there for almost 9 years. I quit my job because I couldn't afford daycare for 3 kids, and we moved to Shrewsbury. But prior to Watertown, I was in Barnstable. Prior to that, I was in Wellesley. Prior to that, I was with the Mass DPW. And it hasn't been the Mass DPW since Governor Weld was elected. So I'm 60. So if you do the math, so my whole career, I love it. I'm passionate about this. So we were very happy to get contacted by the town when you secured a very generous grant of $40,000 to do this work. The Community Compact Program has been a great resource for municipalities to take a look at things that they haven't got the time or the resources to look at themselves. So in great partnership with the school department, we endeavored on this review. And what I thought I would do is just quickly go through the recommendations. I'm not going to read the report for you. We're tight on time. You have a busy night ahead of you. I could talk all night about this, but I won't, I promise. The town administrator will roll me in. But what I thought I would do is just go through the recommendations and tell you the area of why they're important and then touch on them, and then I really want to answer your question.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds great to me.
So I'm gonna go through. If you have the report, it's on, starting on page 2, the table. There's a few large areas of our recommendation. One of the biggest ones is liability and risk. You know, the liability that, and the risk that you have about liability is quite huge. The other area is actually staffing and onboarding staff. That is, another big area of the recommendations.
If you could give us just a moment to.
Yeah,
I think so.
it is, no,
We have the report.
no,
We have the job description.
the report is online, and everyone had access to it. It did not print out because of the voluminous pages that it would create.
I saw
I
it.
see.
Yeah.
So when you leave here today or follow it up on your phone, will be flexible, and there is a table within the report, if you didn't get a chance to see it, that I'm referring to. So I'm gonna describe what they are, so we won't have that issue. So the areas are your risk and liability, your onboarding, and the costs of vacancies and not onboarding efficiently. And the other area, quite frankly, is your benefit costs. And that's tied to the lack of dedicated HR and the onboarding and the benefit costs. So they do all overlap. So the first recommendation, and I'll get through them all because they all interweave, so we can do questions afterwards. The first recommendation, and these aren't in any particular order, we just ordered them for logistical reasons, is to create a position of the HR director. Right now, there is not one full-time person dedicated to HR. The budget of the town is not small. The number of employees of the town is not small. So there's not even one full-time position dedicated to any HR. You have a payroll person who's full-time in the finance office, but they have treasury duties and payroll. Payroll is not solely HR. It's related to your people, and it is a budget item. The schools have even less. They have a 25-hour-a-week benefited payroll person. They have a director of operations and human resources that certainly, and I'm going to say this with respect, is being paid to do work that a generalist should be doing. You know, so it's really about a lot of allocation of resources. Where is your money being spent wisely? What are you not getting done with the people that you have? So a lot of this is a reallocation of resources. So we do recommend creating a full-time HR director that would be responsible for HR services for both the town, general government, and for the town school department. We don't say it's one or the other, it's all the town. So we would have that. The next is to create an HR generalist position, similar to the generalist benefits coordinator that we'll talk about in the town administrator's office, which really could sit in an HR department and doesn't need to be in the town administrator's office, but that's a matter of geography. Where these positions sit are not as critical. The school department really needs a dedicated HR person. We have the superintendent of schools at that salary, the director of operations and human resources at that salary, spending critical hours every single week on administrative functions. That's not the best. They're doing it because they're dedicated and they're wearing many hats, and this work needs to get done. We also have the executive assistant to the school superintendent and the business manager functioning part-time in this generalist role. The work not getting done, and it's not just the HR work not getting done, but what are the critical needs of the school department that is not getting addressed because these people are working in this way. And certainly our analysis shows way beyond the hours And for many of your hourly people, they are working beyond their hours. If you've got a salaried person, you can argue you do what you have to get it done. So there is a real risk there. And what's missing is things like cohesive leave management. So an HR generalist could pull those job postings away from the executive assistant. Things like managing leave. Now, the next position I'm going to talk about is changing the position in the town administrator's office, whose part-time benefits, part-time clerical support to the town administrator and the select board, make that an HR generalist and benefits coordinator. That will address, along with an HR generalist in the school department, the onboarding crisis that you have now. People are being hired without all the right paperwork. This is not through anybody's fault. It's just the reality. When you have to fill a position on an immediate basis, whether it is a child who needs a bus driver or a paraprofessional aide, you need to do that. But you're also at risk of not checking every box, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. In some cases, people have started work without the authorization. That's a huge liability. And so those are the first few. We do recommend creating a part-time administrative assistant in the town administrative board, select board, forgive me, office. They have no dedicated administrative staff in the town administrator's office. If every person wears multiple hats, and that's true on the school side, and I think that's in honor of people's dedication to this town and their jobs. It's not sustainable, and things are going to be missed, and they're not going to be paid attention to. The liability in HR is huge. One of the recommendations I mentioned earlier is to remove many of the HR functions from the executive system to the HR generalist. The recommendation includes changing the director of school finance and HR to just be finance and operations. They at that level at the school department aren't getting to the facilities issues. You know, the business manager, the director of school finance is doing enrollment into mass teachers' retirement. That's not a function that somebody at that level should be doing. Not that it's not beneath him, but is that the right allocation of resources? So we've had great meetings with the team at the school department, and they've really been part and parcel of this report when you get to take a chance to read it. We do recommend moving the part-time payroll specialist from sitting at the school department to put that in the finance department so there can be cross-training. Because people wear so many hats in this town, if somebody leaves, it's almost like there's two vacancies. If you have somebody who's got two roles, who's out. I do know that is being still discussed between the town administrator and the superintendent and the finance director. So that is not, that's an efficiency issue, not a cost issue, physically moving the payroll person. I think the hesitancy is that without a generalist, HR generalist on the school location or dedicated, that fear of giving up the person, you know, it is there. One of the largest recommendations is to update the onboarding process. And another part and parcel of that is really evaluating the benefits granted. The town pays, and you need to budget for assuming a new employee will take the family plan, which this year, the most common family plan is $22,000 in cost to the town.
To the town.
To the town's
Okay.
cost is 22,000. That's 70%. In the upcoming fiscal year, that goes up to $25,000. And again, one of the recommendations is to do a complete audit on the large cost is you have many employees who work between the 19 and a half hours and 25 hours who get full-time benefits. And we know it's a recruitment enticement. I do know that benefit budgeting is being looked to being kind of moved and share the information. It sits right now with the town. So the incentive, and it's not an incentive, when you get somebody hired at 20 hours, that's another $25,000 potential cost to you. Could that position be 19 hours? Maybe. In some cases, it's not. You might need that one-on-one aid for 22 hours a week. So we're not saying you can't do it, but we're saying build in a mechanism. There currently is no communication on that issue of benefits. And I do know you're being well served by your new finance director with really taking a look at that and really looking at the benefits. But when you think about the cost of the recommended positions, that's what your job is here to look at many things, but one of the things is the cost. So in new positions or new hours, the cost in salary is about, let's say, 200,000, and in benefits might be another 50,000 if you're adding 2 more benefited positions. $250,000 is a lot of money. That's 10 employees off the benefit roll if we do an audit. So, and a lawsuit about a botched hire or a mistake in hiring or a discrimination claim, or you didn't give family medical leave in the way that you should be, that's one lawyer's bill, you know, for a lawsuit or an arbitration. Never mind what you're not giving to your employees. The people are so busy in these jobs right now, you're not able to have a robust benefits fair. You're not able to do strategic planning for any of these things. To apply for grants, I mean, you were able to get a grant to do this, so I commend the town on that. The feeling we got when we interviewed everybody involved in this, and everybody was so wonderful to meet with us, and was all we do is react to crisis. We've got an emergency a day. There's no time to put the systems in place. You know, we don't have shared software between the school department and the general government. One's on Google, one's on Microsoft. The two don't like to talk. Then you have the Munis software. There's not enough cross-training and technical training on it. People do workarounds because you've got employees who know it. So there's all of these lost opportunities that are contributing to that. So we do recommend, you know, as we get down in through the recommendations, take a look at your software, your shared software. I know there has been conversations with the IT director and the school department about what can we do. So we've really kicked off a great working group and a team between the two departments, the general government and the school department. So these are our primary recommendations. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I want to respect your time.
Yeah, I'll just start off with a couple broad ones. I'm sure we'll get into more detailed ones in a moment. Could you just educate us a little bit in terms of how the HR landscape has changed over the years, pick your time frame, and why this is so important to adapt to this today?
Certainly, there's more, like in most of our governments, there's more and more regulations. Even things like leave, family medical leave, parental leave, small necessities leave, act leave, domestic violence leave. You need to have somebody who knows all of these policies. And what happens is people are reacting or calling a friend in another place, and sometimes those friends give the wrong answer. You know, so you find that, oh, we didn't follow, whether it's the law, the policy, the collective bargaining agreements. There's nobody really overseeing that. There's silos of that, but there's no comprehensive town view of that. What is the policy? Now, in some places, you need a different policy that will look different for teachers. You know, it's not always one size fit all, but the Family Medical Leave Act is a federal law that needs to be applied. There may be bargaining issues that are different, which is why we strongly recommend there be a dedicated HR generalist for the school department. The school department teacher evaluation process is unique. Often the superintendents or directors of curriculum deal with that. So that might be a dash line to the HR. Tracking credentials, licenses, certifications, that's data that needs to be easily accessible and being done consistently. The issue of principals being in charge of their buildings, true, absolutely true. But they have to equally apply the laws and the policies as well. They need that support. There's not one dedicated HR professional at the school department to work in those ways. So I think in that way, we're not seeing huge increases in litigation on hiring. We did not see evidence of that, you know, in our review. But there are things like the town could certainly use a review of how they're keeping personnel files. It should not have medical files. HIPAA laws are important, ADA laws. There's more and more focus on accommodating disabilities, and particularly in cognitive disabilities. So it's those kinds of things that have been dealt with reactionary, but you really should have procedures and processes in place.
And just to add on before others have questions, can you cite generic examples of towns that have adversely impacted them for not making changes and adapting to the current times?
Certainly.
And I don't need a laundry list, just a couple.
No.
Yeah, not all night.
Well, you can certainly look in the news and say, you know, what is political speech out of town hall versus what is a policy? Huge impact on that. Facebook policies, dealing with it's so much better to prevent a crisis than clean it up. Dealing with a municipality on, around, you know, what do we post on bulletin boards? Where are our policies? You know, social media policies, cell phone policies. We're all very loose with our cell phones. Do we require employees to use their personal cell phones at work? What are your remote work policies? Are those applied fairly equally? And what is fair is not equal, is not just. It depends. Those words are not all the same. You know, we can be fair, but does that mean you're being treated equally? It depends on the circumstances. And having a professional who can focus on those things and be that human resource to people is so critical. Those are just a few examples. The issue of along the ADA and along discrimination, what we're seeing more of are issues of who's going to be your expert on what's our policy on bathrooms, pronouns, transgender, and you know, excluding people in the workplace. These are some of the bigger issues that have been bubbling up in municipalities who in good faith are trying to work with it. You know, so some of these are your real critical HR issues. In addition to issues of recruitment, retention, succession planning. You don't have a dedicated person to look at what are the training needs of our staff to keep them up with the work. So what we end up doing is having managers do more of we've become so flat. We don't have those middle positions anymore where we can train people up and cross-train. This town is very slimly staffed. You lose a person, you lose all that expertise and knowledge. So that's some of the things that most municipalities are dealing with today.
Perfect, thank you. Joyce, go ahead.
So you're talking 2 positions?
The recommendation is to create it's actually 2.5. The report recommends creating an HR director, a joint one or shared or however we're wording that, a generalist for the school department and an 18-hour position for the select board.
And, okay. So that's the 2.5 positions. Who's paying for these positions? Is it a shared between the school and the municipality? And would these, positions be union members or are they non-union?
You may certainly. I'm gonna jump and say non-union.
As far as the funding for this, we've always presented this and discussed this with the school as this is outside the municipal or school annual budgeting cap. So this is a department that benefits the entire town. And so it would not fall within municipal or school. As far as, where it would actually just wind up in the budget, I think we're recommending that it be placed within the municipal budget as its own department. And that be handled in that fashion. As far as the question of whether these positions are in the union or not, certainly the HR director would not be a union position. The HR generalist we would have to talk with our attorneys and have some discussions with them about where that would appropriately fall. But that's where we are currently.
And the 18.5 hour?
18.5 hours is actually a union position. And just to give a little more background on that, the person in my office that currently does both benefits administration and does clerical work on paying bills, doing minutes, that person will be fully dedicated to benefits administration. So we would need someone to pick up that additional clerical work.
Okay.
So the good part is we don't need 3 full positions. We need 2 positions and one part-time non-benefited position.
Okay. I asked Will about the funds because the school's already in a deficit. And so that's, we can't be asking, so I wanted to be sure that it's municipal.
Yes, we'll be looking at this as part of the broader budget recommendation for this year. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I will say that you're meeting again in 2 weeks from tonight. At that point, we expect to have an overall budget plan and recommendation for the committee, and it will include, I'm sure many of the questions you're going to be asking about how does this fit within the broader budget and how might that impact the other budgets within the community. So we'll discuss all of that in 2 weeks from tonight.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, so you had me at hello. Those of us who have run small businesses that have became eventually large businesses all suffer from the same problem. Everybody handled HR until they couldn't handle HR, and the lucky ones didn't get sued because of it, but realized the problem fast enough so they could do this. So it all makes sense. It's not something unique. Most other towns of our size now, or many, I should say, have gone to it, as you well know. I think one thing you didn't touch upon, or maybe you did and I missed it, which might be one of the most important aspects of this particular job, is discipline. We always do a very poor job of disciplining, not knowing how to if we're not HR directors or HR experienced. And the other thing I'll just ask is, do we have a current employee manual, and did you have the opportunity to review it? And if you did, is it something that needs complete revamping or just add-ons?
I appreciate that softball. Years ago, I helped the town write its employee manual. I do believe that's when the union formed, for the managers. And yes, we don't focus on the negative, but if you have a good performance management program, you don't need discipline. But you're absolutely right, that consistent application of those policies across the organization will be critical, because those are where your grievances, your arbitrations, your lawsuits come from. The disparate treatment arguments. Now, but that's also why having a school generalist to help administer those contracts, the HR director will have full responsibility, but you've got to have those generalists, which would be that combined HR generalist benefits person, boots on the ground. What does each policy by union say? Are we stepping on something that's different for one union or another, even though we have a larger, broader policy? Your policies are in good shape. I remember when we drafted them, I know KP Law signed off on them, and I know that the assistant town administrator, as policies have changed, that's one thing she has kept up with, is those critical policies. So having that, the schools have a more formal teacher evaluation system, that would be with the superintendent and the HR generalist. You wouldn't take that away, that logistical thing, but even in terms of the legal approach, are the lawyers shared between the general government and the school department, and what makes sense in applying those policies in the same way? The town has one insurance policy. It doesn't have a liability policy that's different for the schools or the town. So those are those issues. And yes, the conduct policies are critical. The discipline, we never focus on that, because if you have good managers applying policies who have that resource to help them, oh, how do I handle this? Everybody knows they're calling Karen now. How do I handle this? But that's pulling her away from her assistant town administrator job. So thank you.
And I think the other thing, my last thing I'll say is, when you do have experienced people, there's a lot less phone calls to the lawyers. So you could be saving all of the costs of this there, but more importantly, you'll save a lot of costs in the same ways that you talked about. So when we look at this from the standpoint of a total cost of the 3 people, reality is it's probably not going to cost us much of anything in terms of saving us money, as you said, on benefits, but more importantly, staving off potential conflicts, issues, problems, litigation. So it all makes sense.
Thank you.
I just.
Go ahead. Yeah, you do have a question?
Go ahead.
I'll let Joyce go ahead, Joyce.
Okay.
Thank you. Excuse my ignorance about the position that the assistant town administrator has. Were you not supposed to be in charge of HR?
Can I address that one as well, Mr.
Thank
Chair?
you.
So when several years ago, I was dealing with an ever-growing amount of personnel issues, and I don't mean just discipline issues, but I mean just changes in law, needs for updating our job descriptions, needs to better manage our human resource policies. It was getting to be simply too much for me to handle as the personnel director. And Karen was already fairly well burdened with all kinds of other tasks. But when we were looking at just trying to make some changes to try to manage this, we did make a proposal to have the
Sorry, there was a sound on the
okay,
on the
sorry.
microphone, so that's why I was smiling. I wasn't smiling at you. Sorry. Keep going.
So my intention was to have the assistant town administrator position handle all the tasks that they were currently handling, and also probably about 20 to 25% of that position to help with discipline, to help with policies, to help with things such as that. But we're finding that that's just unmanageable in the growing needs of human resources in the town. So we're finding that we're unable to get other things done appropriately, and that's been an issue. One thing.
So I wasn't mistaken though about you doing some
no.
HR. Okay.
No, yes, yeah,
Okay.
the assistant town administrator does assists me with some of the high level HR duties. She meets with department heads when there's an issue with an employee. She helps, address policy issues, works with me and our labor council to try to address a number of issues, as they come up. But it's just becoming unmanageable. And we're still unable to really address a lot of the needs that Mary had outlined about really looking at, benefits management, looking at town-wide evaluation processes, looking at, really, fixing, I think, some deficiencies that currently exist in all our, personnel files that really haven't been updated in decades, that desperately need to be updated. So there's a lot of issues there that really, because of the current workload that I have, as well as the assistant town administrator, we're not even able to meet those needs. And there have been times, unfortunately, we've been unable to go after certain grants because we didn't have the time to really apply for them and administer them. So we're hoping that this will allow opportunities for us to be a little more aggressive in pursuing some of the other grants out there. So there's another area of cost savings in additional revenue for the town.
So the position that Victoria has would then become what?
Currently, she's half benefits administration and half clerical AP. So she does a lot of the bills for the department and does minutes and also supports the capital planning committee.
So her position will be.
100% benefits administration as a generalist. So it'll be on not just the benefits, but there'll be other pieces to that as well. And she'd be working with the, reporting to the HR director.
Okay, and that's why the additional 18-hour.
That's
position.
correct. That's correct. Because we don't want someone with a higher level of salary, experience, responsibilities doing that type of work.
Sure.
As Mary said, it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I just needed to.
Yep, good
Connect all
question,
the
good
dots.
question. Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. Chair, from the report I read, did it state that, staff from the school, one staff person from the school is going to be coming over to the town hall?
That was the payroll, that's our recommendation, that hasn't been finalized yet, and as I said, that would be an efficiency thing, not a cost thing. So I think that's still being discussed. We do recommend that the report recommends that the 25-hour payroll person actually could still be paid by the schools, that's up to you all to decide, but sit in with the payroll administrator, because that payroll administrator and your finance director really do supervise the work product of that. And there's often a disconnect when new people, this goes back to the onboarding. New people get hired, payroll gets generated or started without the onboarding paperwork. So it's really an efficiency issue. It's not, and it really would depend on some decisions around physical location. So that's one of the pending matters. That's not critical to moving forward.
Thank you. I say that because we were told earlier, Mr. Chair, that, all of these positions would come under the umbrella before, and if, the school is actually losing a staff person to now be under the umbrella of HR, is that a cost savings for the school, or are they now getting another position? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And thank you for the opportunity for clarification
Yep,
on that.
please do.
But that payroll person at the school, wasn't including them in what I was talking about the HR department. That's part of payroll, and that's one of the recommendations, and that is more a focus on the finance office. They work with the HR department, but that particular individual, although that's part of the recommendations, it's not part of any new employees or any changes in level of staffing. That person would still remain, at those hours, would still remain a school employee. Really, the only discussion is where that person would sit to do their work. What was the best model to have that position?
Actually physically having in one room, one roof where they can talk.
Over here,
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
That's something that can easily be worked out with myself, the superintendent, the business manager, and the finance director. We'll definitely, if this were to go forward, we would definitely be able to work through that without any huge issues. And as Mary said, it's not critical. And there may be benefits to making some changes, but it's something that will work out.
Perfect.
And Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go
also, You know, the state has regulations for how to do this and how to do that, so is it always a decision of an HR director, or is it simply just to review the precedents on state regulations on how to act when there's an issue in the school or in the town hall? It's like you go to this page and it's been determined by law and by court case that this is how you proceed.
Yes and no. As always, the answer from an HR director will be that it depends on the fact.
I mean, Mr. Chair, I don't want to get into litigation or anything.
No,
but
no,
I just
we-
want to make sure that people realize there are a set of state regulations wherein employee benefits and their rights and obligations are already noted therein. So I hope that it would be my hope that the town is not reinventing the wheel on how to do something that perhaps the Commonwealth has already determined this is how you do it. It doesn't require an answer. I'm just stating, I hope the person that is these positions, and I also hope the people are you know, at least a master's degree or something if you're getting into this. And is it going to be simply just changing a nameplate on somebody in a job and take it from there? Or is it going to be a complete overhaul of getting the best person for the position? Not to say that what's there is not the best position,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair. It's
understood.
just like, I participated in.
Well, why don't we let
hiring
Mary
with
answer?
you.
Go ahead, Mary.
No, I remember you helping us years ago. You're absolutely right. There are federal laws, there are state laws. They do not detail your procedures, though.
Okay.
For example, the one benefit that by making the benefits coordinator also be the HR generalist, which I wanted to touch on, is leave administration. Some of your most active grievances are about equal application of benefits and family medical leave and what are the rules. You know, if it's a rainy Tuesday, the federal law is different than if it's a sunny Thursday. And you need somebody to say, okay, well, if it is the arrival of a child and it's this way, then you have to coexist with the collective bargaining agreements, which can bargain. The town has different agreements that have bargained greater benefits than the law. So it's that juxtaposition of knowing, yes, there are the federal laws, and certainly the HR director should be highly educated and trained in HR. The generalist, just like you have an accounts payable clerk who works for an accountant to do that work, that's what a generalist is to that director. So you're absolutely right, which is why the liability is so big when you have these regulations. So you bring up an excellent point, and it really is the onboarding. There's so many, for those generalists, it's much more about the procedures under the regulations than interpreting them. The HR director should be that expert and be trained and keep up on things. So thank you.
I say something.
Yeah, please do.
No. I'm just gonna say something because I am the current acting HR
In your car.
manager, which is, as Mike said, was supposed to be about 10% of my job. We knew there was an issue. We knew we didn't have HR in one particular spot, and we could start looking to try to centralize and do some of these things. But you're 100% right, Kathy. As we started to look at things, we realized, holy moly, this is way more going on here that needs to get fixed than is 10% of a job. And, you know, as you were talking about the unions, we have 5 unions alone. On the town side, that doesn't include all of the unions that are on the school side. Then you start looking at all of these pieces, then you start looking at a lot of disciplinary issues that we've had going on. 90% of my job is just trying to keep up with the HR things. And as Mike said, truly, other things are falling off the table. Like you said, we're missing grant applications, we're missing other pieces where we could find cost savings. I'm pulled in 90 directions. I don't mind. I like my job, I like what I do. But you're absolutely right. We need someone who is truly trained in the HR process to take over the HR director role. It will be a huge benefit for this town, and we can clean a lot of those pieces up. I think I've made a good start on some of these pieces. It was the first time we really started to meet and collaborate with the school and try to figure out the onboarding process. Are there still a lot of problems with onboarding? 100%.
Yeah.
It's just because, as Mary said, the staffing is not at the level that it needs to be. So we're trying and we've made great strides, but we have a long way to go. And we owe it, I think, to the town to find someone to truly, like you said, find the cost savings, spend the money properly and manage it properly.
And just to summarize, the human resource director will be a search for that position. And that position will, here in the description, have a bachelor's degree, have, 5 to 7 years, be certified appropriately across the board here. So,
And if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think I would add that I have been a town administrator in various towns for over 30 years, which by default, in most of those towns, I've been the personnel director, in most of those towns. I do know a fair amount, just from my experience in doing this, but I wouldn't pretend to know nearly as much as someone that specializes in this, that has years of experience doing solely this work and spends most of their professional development time learning specifically about human resource issues, where I have to kind of run the gamut and spread that knowledge out much more. So we were looking to hire a person that will come in here, know the laws, know the rules, know how to really move the town forward and be able to identify the weaknesses here. And the possible cost savings, and be able to act on those in real time. So that's long and short of it, that's what we want to head to.
got it. Pete, Ruby, do you have a question or
I
not?
do.
Okay.
I think the recommendations make sense. They sound like prudent ways to mitigate risk. And I appreciate the risks that you've identified. However, they also could be incredibly controversial the way that you're presenting to mitigate them. In the sense that over the last 2 years, we've cut 22 positions, mostly positions that are in contact frontline educators or assistants, aides that come in contact with our students. And so that leads me to ask my question, and that is the only way to mitigate risk to add or create positions? For those of us that run companies, or small or large, there are HR functions that can be outsourced. And my question is the only way to do this to hire and create positions, or can we, what's the most cost effective way to do that?
Well, my patent answer, it depends. I think that it's never the only way, but what is the best practice, right? So I think that, especially hearing you discuss, and we certainly have these conversations about losing positions, right? Now, what positions did you lose? I'm not asking you to answer, but were they benefited positions? Had we been smarter about what positions we were giving benefits to? Why did we need to cut positions? Did we have positions at 22 hours that were costing us an additional $25,000 in health insurance alone? Never mind what the leave costs are, the insurance costs on top of that. I think that the risk is you don't even have somebody who has the time to look at, can we go out to bid for health insurance and get a better deal? Is there a payroll system? Can we go to Harper's? Can we change our payroll? Who's looking at that? That takes staff to do that. Or consultants way more expensive than the Collins Center who can come in and really do that. I think there's the balance, but if you don't have the foundation, you don't know what you need to build. And I think that there's got to be striking that balance. I think that there are cost savings that could fund these positions. It's tragic when you see a municipality have to cut positions. And oftentimes a reallocation, sometimes it's, do we give one position? Do we combine two positions that have benefits into one position? Sometimes that's doable, but like I said, if it's a paraprofessional or a one-on-one aide, you can't do that. They cannot be in two places at one time. You know, we were able to look at some positions that had 21 or 22 hours and say, well, why is that? Why can't we do that? Why are we you know, looking, and I'm not gonna call out any titles, I don't think that's what we're here for.
Mhm.
You know, so I think that's why one of the recommendations is to really do an in-depth, and I know the finance director is looking towards that. Do that audit. And one of the recommendations is to get a working group together that when a position is being filled and it triggers benefits, let's just touch base to be sure, is that the way we really have to do it? So, we want good people to be hired. We want to be the employer of choice, but you also have the fiduciary responsibility to, you have some positions who are earning more in benefits than in salary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a few more minutes and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Joyce.
I'm sorry, Pete, I'll let you,
No, we're done.
real quick.
you have
Thank
one
you.
more too,
Pete,
please.
the 22 positions though that were cut were our educational positions. So you question what they were educational positions. So I think that's where you were coming from, that we've lost 22 positions and it's in our school system. So I think some of us are, and I'm not speaking for the rest of but I will speak for myself and people that I've spoken to. Our school systems, the need for educators is greater than the need for municipality. And I could be totally off, but that's what I've been getting from people.
Go ahead, Mike. And then Craig.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that sentiment. If you just kind of take a quick look at the situation and say we shouldn't be hiring anyone else until we can hire back or stabilize the school situation, and I understand that. I think there's a little bit of a difference here in that, obviously, you know, if we're able to bring back school employees, we'll improve the educational experience, we'll increase that and bring service levels back up. But in this case, we have an operational gap that, as Mary's explained, it has liability. Not only that, but there's issues here that are not being addressed in a timely manner. And in addition to that, you have a cost issue where if we bring in these folks, there will be cost savings. Will be cost savings that we believe within a fairly short amount of time will more than pay for these positions. So it's not exactly apples and oranges. We're not saying, well, we're hiring 4 police officers instead of bringing back some teachers. To me, this is a little different. This is about the base operations of the community, closing a liability gap,
Mr. Chair.
and also having cost savings for the community that we believe will more than pay for the additional costs related to these positions.
Pete, real quick, and then Craig, you're next.
Very short.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that you quantify that and you present it and you quantify the risk. When you say that there's a risk for not having things on bulletin boards and not having a benefits fair and things like that, that does not move the needle to support this. What would move the needle is dollars and cents of costs saved and the potential for lawsuits. I mean, when's the last time we had a lawsuit? You don't have to get into specifics, but tell us the dollars and cents. What is the risk? Quantify the risk so that people can actually make informed decisions on it.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, first off, I'm gonna say that, I agree with what Mike's been saying about all this and what everything that's been said, but, Karen, Terry, and Mike have done a really good job maintaining our systems. But we have a lot that needs doing. We've been lucky in a lot of cases with HR issues that have come up, but haven't progressed to lawsuits that should have never come up. Those things don't make the headlines, they don't hit anywhere, but each one of those could have easily, if any of those had been pursued, it would have easily paid for these positions. If these positions could avoid it, we wouldn't have had those issues. So as I said, one crisis is gonna cost us more than this position is gonna cost us, one mismanagement, and it's not a municipal position, Joyce, it is truly townwide. It's not gonna.
Oh,
just
no,
be certain
I'm not arguing. I just want, I will get asked a lot of
Yeah.
questions.
Well, I think the interesting point about that is the school committee is also on board with this. They see this as a benefit for them as well. I mean, everybody wins on this, I think. And the benefit savings, as Mike said, could start paying for it if we get a little smarter about how we start hiring 19 hours versus 20 hours versus 25 hours whenever applicable. So that could come a long way. And I think it makes a lot of sense to try to quantify how many people we have working 22, 25 hours. And not every one of those positions could be converted, but if they all could have been converted to 19, what would it have been? And finally, we got a $40 million organization with no dedicated HR staff. where I work is $40 million and we have a staff about this size. So it feels like it's about right. We have no payroll backup. That's me. God forbid we ever have to exercise that option. But, and again, and staffing is our largest cost. That's our largest, pool of, risk, our largest, delivering of services. We run on staff. So not having an HR department with, staff as large as we do. And they'll be able to assist with union negotiations, although we've done a pretty good job with Mike, but this is a good
And with
situation.
care.
Neutral party, yeah.
I guess that-
Thank you, Craig. Well, go ahead, Gail.
Labor Council is also heavily involved in union contracts, so, I wanna know somewhat. No, if you see their bill, you'd think otherwise. But I agree with Mr. Berube. There has to be some cost savings, and what will the person do that is being, or the staff doing that's been, I don't need to know this now, but to follow up, what is the staff that will be relieved of these duties? Oh, we can do this and do that. I'd like it to be a little more itemized, Mr. Chair. And also I'd like to talk about the spacing issue, which was brought up, Miss Mary, when you presented, I think, to the select board. Where is this person going to go? It may be, we heard that a school may come over, but not now. So we're not even sure how the select board is moving toward this. But the one thing that you did hear from staff was having to go into a room with 10 people and 15 in the select board's office, and you can agree or not that, and they're having union HR issues, and there's no private place for them to be. And I think until you have space adequate for these positions that are coming in, I think you'd be doing yourself a better service if you had the place for these you had the proper computers set up and before you delve into these positions. And also, I'd like to just remind you that the DPW keeps software on all licenses, due dates, CLUs that are required, and the DPW employees, they receive, this is what you have to do, and it would behoove the town. You were saying that you're behind on, you don't have a central system for that to merely use what the DPW has been so successful with for many years. And also, I would just like to say that there's a comment, Miss Mary, on page 4. It says, transactional functions are a way of, quote, managing the employment relationship from recruitment and processing employees through retirement. And I'm wondering if the function of the town is to get people through retirement, their 30 or 40 years, or is it more to enhance their education and perhaps move on, go for a promotion within another town, rather than just you keep the flow like this and do your time and you'll be out of here at the age of 65. That doesn't require a comment either. These are just things that I've got numerous.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mary, I'll give you the last word tonight, so if you want to summarize and conclude, that would be great.
I do think that, the quote is that HR has changed from the transactionals, from hiring to retirement, and it needs to become more strategic. So the next paragraph is about strategic HR. So you all are the decision makers. We are the recommenders. You can take our recommendations, you can modify them, you can tweak them, you can be practical about them. Is space an issue? Do we do one then the other? Do you do it all at once? These are all of your decisions. We've put in the report, and if you haven't had a chance to go through it, maybe after tonight, you can go and take a look at it. And I know that the town will get that. I myself like the data. Okay, if we cut 10 benefited, if we don't fill a vacancy with benefits, we're not saying take someone's benefits away. You know, for the next time we fill a job, let's evaluate how many hours it is. And I also think that after, you know, y'all are very busy, do that analysis. And I know the finance department has started on that. Where are those vacancies? Where are the enrollments? Because I do think that that HR generalist benefits person would be managing workers' compensation a little bit more robustly than just having the third-party administrator do it. So there's all opportunities for improvement, but these are our recommendations and findings, and it's really up to the town to decide what to do next.
So I lied. I'm gonna be the last person. Oh, you're gonna sneak in there, Mike? One, two sentences. All right, and then, all right,
A couple very quick things, and I do take Mr. Ruby's point very seriously. I do, you know, as far as the liability, it is hard to prove a negative on that, and so if this department comes into being, and it prevents a number of lawsuits, other than showing that there aren't a number of lawsuits, it'd be hard to prove that up. Although I do think that the cost savings could easily be generated simply by better management of the hiring practices and therefore the benefits, the health insurance administration. I think there's $250,000 in savings right there over the next 2 or 3 years. That will build upon itself on an annual basis. So I mean, I can certainly put some.
please do.
Put some
Numbers.
verbiage and
Yeah.
numbers together to show what we believe is possible through this.
Yep,
But again, they'd be our projections. And just one last thing for me is, I know I did, forward some job descriptions and related.
we're gonna hammer that out too.
And hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at
Yeah.
those. I didn't know if when Mary's here, if there's any immediate questions on that or.
So in the essence of time, great questions, everybody, a lot of more questions. I recommend everybody read through it again. I've read through it twice and I'll probably read through it 3 or 4 times. Please funnel your questions over to me and we will get them over to Mike and Karen because this is a change in the structure of the Millis, how we do business and the HR department. So we want to make sure we fully understand it. The questions were great tonight. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more, so please pass those along. But Mary, I appreciate you allocating your time tonight and explaining it all to us.
Thank you.
Happy to be here, happy to respond to questions down the line, so, you know.
Just
Perfect.
on a
Thank you very
side
much.
note, I'm just gonna tell you, you look about 40, so.
There you go.
That is definitely an HR violation.
Yeah. What is that, 35?
Does the town currently have a personnel director?
You're looking at him. Yeah,
It
Thank you.
says,
Thank you very much.
thank you. We're moving on, Kathy. Write it in a question, write it in a question. All right, town building, you bet. Budget request has been removed from the agenda late in the game. Deidre didn't update this in time, not your fault, Deidre. That was just a late change. So we will go into the Board of Health fiscal year 26 budget requests. So come on down, John.
Thank you, John. Sorry about Jeff Soul.
Yes, thank you for your patience, John.
Nice to see you here, John.
Good evening, my name is John McVeigh and I'm the Director of the Board of Health. And I should go over the budget for fiscal year 26.
Sure.
Turn the mic towards you.
Oh, yeah, perfect, thank you.
For this role. And the first area is the salary area, which is contracts for unions, and the total for that is going up to $161,000. And the operational section, which is 10,000. And the total would be 171,000. And the only increase in the operational, the two accounts, that's $150 and one is for $200 for training, and the other $150 was for the subscriptions.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please go.
I noted on a number of the different departments in the wage salary line items. Several people in this department are members of the SEIU bargaining unit, and we do anticipate that all the contracts will be ratified very soon. But those numbers have not been loaded in yet. So those are some of those salaries which are still subject to adjustments after the submittal, which the director would have no way of knowing exactly what those numbers are.
So, I know it's a moving target, but the target's getting smaller, so, do we have an idea of when those numbers will be updated, and can you forward those on to us? ASAP?
Absolutely. I do, anticipate that contracts, all collective bargaining agreements hopefully will be ratified next Monday.
Okay,
And that those numbers will be, baked into those documents as soon as possible after that. The finance director will be working on that, and I would expect that by your next meeting in 2 weeks, you'll have those numbers.
4-9, okay, perfect, thank you. Go ahead, John.
Yeah,
Was that it?
Yeah, that's it. There's not a lot of changes.
we have a small budget.
You
so-
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, no,
One of the most important boards. in
Yeah.
the Commonwealth.
yeah, that's stuff, yeah.
Didn't shut it
Any
down.
non-financial things we should be aware of, being in the health area?
No.
No? All right.
Mosquito season is. approaching.
Yeah. It's coming.
Down that we're West Nile and Eastern Economic.
Yeah.
We expect someone's housing, wells, septic systems,
Yeah.
tobacco, nuisances, and the public health nurse goes over vaccinations and disease monitoring.
Yeah,
So that's important.
okay. I appreciate you waiting tonight through the HR discussion, and I appreciate you coming in to talk about health, so,
Great to see you, John.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Truly.
All right.
Thank you so
Welcome back.
much.
Thanks.
Didn't lose a
Thank you.
beat.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good to see you,
I
kiddo.
feel bad, we should have taken you first, you were so.
I know, I was thinking about it.
Just didn't know you lost, you must go ahead. Thank you.
All right, have a good night. Employee benefits, general insurance, town council FY 26 budget request. Might be the last one standing, so.
So. Let's start with.
Have all 11 pages here.
But that, I didn't know.
There you go. Yeah.
I apologize. That was a very quick presentation.
Did you want to touch upon employee benefits at all? So that's the pension, I think the key,
Hold on.
the main drivers here
Yeah.
are essentially, Norfolk County, pension assessment. And our, GIC health insurance, that drives most of, as well as our, I think if you included the, general liability insurance. I will note, just something on the pension assessment.
Are we looking at anything yet, or are you just talking in general?
I'm just talking in general.
Okay, sorry, I didn't want to know if we were to be flipping through papers, so we'll give you our undivided attention before we start flipping. Go ahead, no, that's fine, go ahead, talk about the pension.
So if you look at the benefits, I'm sorry.
Oh, my, all right, where are we going?
Let's go on.
Last page, all right,
Starting at the end.
second to last page, benefits.
All on your toes here.
Is this Memorial Day Legion, expenses at the top?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you go to the very back of those different budgets, the last one is benefits.
Yes,
So, I'll just to throw you off, I'll start with, retirement.
okay,
The line that says retirement,
Yep.
Yeah.
so that's Norfolk County retirement, and what that line is an annual assessment that the Norfolk County Retirement Board votes to send us, our assessment, and that's based on a number of factors. First of which is the, number of retirees we have, the number of current full-time benefited employees we have, as well as their schedule to fully fund the system. By law, the system is supposed to be fully funded, I believe, by 2036 statewide. Was state law.
Mhm.
They are being aggressive. They're trying to fully fund Norfolk County retirement by 2032. That is good and bad. The good news is that if that were to be, after fiscal year 2032, we get no more assessments, from Norfolk County for
Wow.
pension. So all the, costs would be borne by the current employees and through growth in their fund.
so this is 2.9 million that's going into the retirement
Right, they're
fund,
assessing us that amount.
assessing that amount.
Basically a deficit.
Right,
So
so,
right now.
so basically for us, that's about 11% increase, which is pretty severe.
And that's because they want to shorten the time frame.
That's correct. And we've had a number of meetings with, the folks from Norfolk County Retirement to ask them to look to kind of more level that increase. So it's instead of an 11 and then a 5 and then a 6 and a 2, to maybe have like a 7 and an 8 and a 7 and But they've decided not to go that route this year. Ultimately, it is the pension, the board's decision to make that. Myself, as well as many of my, colleagues from other communities in, Norfolk County have asked them to do that, and they said they will take that under consideration for future years. But they've locked in this number for this coming year.
Are other counties under the same process that you're outlining here?
Yes, all county retirement systems and town retirement systems are required by 2036 to
Yeah.
have their pensions fully funded. Again, Norfolk County has made an individual decision to be fully funded by 2032.
Gotcha.
Again, good and bad. The bad in that we're certainly taking a little bit of a budget hit at this point.
Go ahead, Andy.
Those variances driven by market performance or by benefits owed? Variances or both?
It's by market and by number of employees,
Both.
primarily, yes. So essentially, we've asked them to consider a more graduated approach in the future, but we have to go on the assumption that that's not gonna change for this coming fiscal year, and I think they've pretty much locked in those numbers.
Sorry to interrupt. So based on those numbers though, an 11% increase this year, will that change? Have they given you an indication of what that number will be in years 2, 3, 4, 5, or all the way up to 2032? Based on-
We do have a chart of estimated numbers.
Ooh.
Again, they change
Can we,
year
are
to year.
you willing to
based on-
share that?
I am. I don't have it all in front of me.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
But, you know, this would be one of the worst years we're hit with this year.
It depends on fund performance.
Wait till next year.
Right.
But it all depends on, it mostly depends on performance.
Well, if you have, I
Because
mean,
we're not gonna have wild.
no, if you have a
swings,
bad
you know.
stock market, that's not gonna be
And
good.
if they're still trying to hit that 2032, you might see more than 11%.
Could go up,
Yeah.
There's also the number of people that are taking pensions.
So
Yeah,
11%.
but they can calculate that.
You got,
It's not the top of the mountain.
hey,
11%.
No guarantee.
Yeah.
20% back-to-back years, see what happens going
Yeah.
forward.
Guarantee on that.
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
I'm just wondering, Medicare B reimbursement, is that a state requirement or is that something the town offers?
That's something the town offers, go ahead.
No, you can take that if you want.
I was just gonna say, that's something the town offers that was bargained many, many moons ago, and I don't know how we would ever get out of it.
It's one of those things where once you're in it, it's very
That
difficult
was
to get out.
before our time.
Not even if other towns don't do it, are you, once you do it once, are you obligated forever?
We'd still have to work with the collective bargaining units to try to get rid of it.
Most people pay a monthly fee for Medicare insurance, but it appears like the town pays the retirees portion.
Yes, we
Okay.
do. That's what it is.
That's nice,
If you submit it, you get, yeah,
nice
it's a great perk.
Yeah.
That somebody benefit, somebody bargained for.
And we have-
185
It's
a
a lot of
month.
money.
Yeah, we have been looking into that, and that's something that we'd also, again, human resource department, we have discussions with them on that as well, because it would involve discussions with unions, discussions on changes in policy. But yes, that's something that predates all of us.
Okay, while we're on this subject, Medicare surcharge and Medicare B, we just covered B.
Mhm.
So Medicare is the 484,000 that's being covered,
Right,
Covering
government
that.
payroll.
and what's the surcharge? So, it's a small number.
Yeah, I'd have to, I mean, it's some sort of fee. I'd have to
Yeah.
get back to you on that. It's a fairly small.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
So, but you mandate that everybody over 65 takes Medicare.
That's
Yes.
correct.
So there would be a savings on the insurance that they would get by getting Medicare and a lesser insurance policy. So it's not like,
Right.
you know, it's killing us, but, you know.
No, it could be worse. If they were all in the town's regular health insurance, it would be worse.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a
Hang
retirement
on.
plan.
Go ahead, Greg.
And I think I was on the finance committee when this was done, so I wasn't on top of it exactly. I mean, we talked about it, but I didn't negotiate or anything. But I believe we got rid of there was an ongoing health insurance bill that we paid for retirees. And we did it by getting rid of it with this, where we paid for part B and the other parts of Medicare. It was cheaper at that time to do this than whatever we had on the books at that time. I'm not sure if it's still.
I mean, that must have been 20 years ago.
Probably, it's been there
Plus-
forever.
plus or minus.
Mr. Chair, how many retirees are there in the town that you're going toward?
Get that number.
We can certainly get that.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is, because if you multiply it by 1,500, thank you.
And the last question, RMT health coverage,
that is your GIC, that's our health insurance.
Oh, it is, okay.
So we're assuming a 12% increase, because if you look at the following page, you'll see. Well, this was the expected budget increase, and it depends on what the plan is, it depends on whether people take, we have open
We have an
enrollment
open
starting right now. But we're assuming generally a 12% increase, so if you look at the bottom, we're looking at about a 10.29% increase across the board for benefits.
Yep. Okay, thank you for clarifying
And
that.
again, I think the HR, not the HR piece.
Yeah,
I think being able to do a deep dive into who is, like I said, getting benefits and all of that
Sure.
will start to really affect some of these numbers.
absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I'd just
Yeah,
like
go
to
ahead.
follow up on a question from a few years ago. Is the town considering offering employees a certain buyout if they do not pass? And is it in this contract that's now being signed?
We've had discussions with all the unions in regards to that, and they've all indicated they're definitely open to having that negotiation. That negotiation has to be dealt with slightly different. It has to be, worked through the, Public Employee Committee, which is made up of representatives of all the unions in the entire town, including the school unions. And then they have to take a vote on that. But we are definitely looking at that. And again, that would be part of a human resource department. They would spend some time seriously looking at that as part of the health insurance benefits and ways to cut costs. I have had some experience with that in other communities where costs have been cut, by having people take advantage of that. You have to do it in a careful way to make sure people don't try to game the system. But there are ways to do that, to make sure that it is a net positive for the community.
But you can't just do that for the municipal and not do it for the schools. It has to be everybody.
That's why it goes through the.
Right.
That's why it goes to the PEC. And if the PEC agrees to it, then the town can institute it for all the employees, benefit eligible employees of the town.
So, yeah, we talked about that quite a bit, and we've laid the groundwork, we just need to get going, but we,
For a few
I'm
years.
hoping this
Yeah.
year, that we
several
can
years,
really
yeah.
truly move forward on it, I think it would be great.
It's like, we're waiting for this position, Mr. Chair, to do all these things.
Yeah, makes
Bandwidth,
sense.
bandwidth.
All right, continue, Mike. Thank you.
All right,
Or
so that, I believe.
where are we going to next?
Any other questions on benefits, or is it covered for the benefits for everyone? So let's go to, general insurance.
Maybe general insurance. We're going backwards.
Looks like,
Trying to follow your agenda here.
legal's at the top and then general insurance.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, you wanna talk about mine and the other general insurance?
So you want to do legal first, and it's at the top, does it matter?
Sure, and
Here.
the finance director, who is joining us remotely, just informed me that we have 186 retirees.
Ooh. Thank you, Jody. With a Y.
My pleasure.
So.
Repeat that number? What was it?
186.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
All right,
Are we on legal expenses?
yeah,
or
so
did we-
let's touch upon the legal expenses. We haven't had any measurable increase in our legal rates in about 7 years. This year, Talman and Costa has, right now, we've been paying, the past 7 years, we've been paying $6,000 a month for the retainer, which covers pretty much everything except labor. And they have increased their rates, or plan on increasing their rates for July to $6,500 a month. That and the fact that we do use attorney David Jenkins from Coleman and Page for most of our labor, and their rates have also gone up, are going up for next year. So that accounts for the anticipated increase.
And just to throw it out there, are those fees justified or is it time to shop around for other attorneys?
I've actually looked at other rates out there.
Okay.
And their rates are pretty good.
Competitive, okay.
If you look at a lot of the larger communities that don't have retainers and go with, just different legal practitioners, their rates can be 300, 400 plus an hour.
Yeah,
We've taken a look and their rates, depending on the month, range from probably 175 to 250.
so you're getting value monthly out of the
We feel we're getting
retainers.
value for that. And I know, we do have a discussion with the board every year about
Yeah.
that. Certainly we'll continue to just look at the rates, but we feel we get a great product with our current town council.
Perfect.
And, the plan is to stay with them for FY '26.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Kathy.
just, I realized recently that the auditor, you put that out for bid. And I'm just wondering, my colleague last year mentioned about retainers. And, with increased HR issues perhaps arising, someone's balance sheet is gonna be going up based on what, the gal just recently said. And I wonder if it's time to, I was on the group that, hired Mr. Tallerman, and how many years ago was that? I'm just wondering, it never hurts once in a while. I know you've made phone calls and checked out, but if you do a formal request for, whatever's going on, that would, a formal request would be appreciated, Mr. Chair.
Yes, we'll make sure to take a fresh look, at the market, and see if there's any difference, in the rates that may be worth going out and looking into it deeper. So we can certainly do that.
Go ahead, Mike.
You have good memory, although it was 1 year earlier than last year.
I didn't want, everything's been many years, and I didn't want to press it.
But yes, I was a question I had, obviously, but as I've been involved in the town government in the last couple of years, you start to see more and more of what the value of the services are that are performed, so I don't have any particular objection to this. I do think that with the inclusion of a real, an HR department, we will probably make less phone calls to town council, and then you can reevaluate after that. You know, if that comes to fruition, you reevaluate and see, are we using them less or more, you know?
Great point. Okay, continue.
On the general insurance.
I guess, did you have any specific questions on general insurance? Basically across the board, we're going up about 7%, and that's just the cost of insurance. I will say our finance director, had taken a look at our bonds for public employees, and we're going to see some savings there because she happened to notice some things with her fresh eyes, which has been great. It's not a huge savings, but it's a savings. We are constantly looking at that and trying to find ways to save our insurance because that's a huge cost for us.
Absolutely, go ahead, Joyce.
No, I'm good.
I'm sorry, Joyce, I meant Jody. Sorry, I was looking at Jody, sorry, go ahead.
I'm good.
For the workers' compensation, do we self-finance that or do we pay, do we pay into the fund for that?
We pay for that insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are self-insured for unemployment, but for the workers' comp, we do pay into that.
We have Maya, and it's all outsourced through Cabot.
That's what I'm sorry.
Maya is the umbrella for insurance, and Cabot is one of the companies that we use for the workers' comp.
Mike Rowe.
On the flood insurance, is that external entry flood insurance, or is that like pipes bursting?
No, that's external. This is,
Okay.
the flood insurance is mainly for like the wellheads and those
Okay.
areas,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
Not for our basements of buildings and stuff like that, no?
No.
That's covered, that's covered
in
under our
general-
general policy.
property.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Good clarification, go ahead, Pete.
The sports liability, is that strictly for the rec department or is it cover the
That is for the
schools?
schools. Not for the rec department at all. It's all for school.
Yeah.
For anyone who's on the field.
That's a, sorry, I didn't mean to pull
No,
my
I
weight
think
there.
it's-
That's excuse the mansplaining here. The sports liability, that's a special insurance for the schools. For our general liability here, that's covered within the town's general liability, but the schools have to be covered under a separate
Right.
sports liability. So,
Does the school
Is that-
reimburse for,
Go ahead.
does the school reimburse for this amount?
no, it's considered like a Schedule 19 cost, similar to like the health insurance or other benefits that are
Off the
paid for
top.
by the town. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm good, continue.
So just to quickly cover some of the small budgets, we've got the sealer of weights and measures, that is unchanged. Just to remind everyone how we manage that.
Are you skipping over the town buildings?
Yes,
Okay.
we asked to put that off until.
Oh, you're right, my bad. Yep, thank you.
So the sealer weights and measures, we do have an intermunicipal agreement with the towns of Medfield and Medway. Medway has an employee that actually conducts all the work for the sealers to weights and measures. The reason we do that is because The state has really increased the requirements to be a certified sealer of weights and measures, and there's a lot more schooling, certifications required. We used to use a retired gentleman in town, but it got to the point where he couldn't keep up with the newer requirements. And several of the other towns in the area were dealing with the same problem, so we decided to band together and have this set up, and it's going very well. We haven't had any complaints or problems since we set it up.
Great.
Shared services.
Shared services. And then there's the public celebrations, and that amount is unchanged. And so now we'll back up to the executive offices.
Okay.
I'll just touch upon the salaries briefly, and then I'll turn over to Karen to talk a little bit about the expense end of it. The town administrator salary, that hasn't been finalized yet. Changes are somewhat dependent upon a evaluation and merit, possible merit increase. The board hasn't finalized that yet. So, but this is the highest it would be. And as far as the salary department head, that's the assistant town administrator. The board hasn't made any adjustments to the personnel plan as of yet, to decide a COLA or any other adjustments. So that number is not yet final. And the salary for the economic development director and planner and the wages clerical, those are yet to be formally determined because those are parts of the SEIU collective bargaining agreement.
Gotcha.
And again, we should have all those numbers updated within the next 2 weeks. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen, to talk a little bit about the expense line items.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Could you tell me a little bit about the economic development?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Weiss, who's been with us, for about 10 years, has a multi-role. He wears many hats, like many people in the town do. He is our energy manager, so he manages our energy supply contracts as well as helping, with projects, such as the school project. He'll be assisting them and looking at ways to maximize, the energy outlay there, as well as grants available to do certain upgrades. And he also works as the town planner. He works with MAPC and the planning board on a number of different initiatives for different zoning initiatives, as well as working with our economic development committee, working on economic initiatives for the town. And I know he has since he's been here, he has received over $1 million grants for the community. He continues to apply for grants. Right now, he's applying for the Community One Stop Grant. We're trying to get funds to help with the Lansing Millis building. He's also working on a grant for our housing production plan, which needs to be renewed. He works with the developers when they're coming in asking questions about Chapter 40B or other development questions. So he wears many hats. He does a lot of different work for the town. And I know he probably doesn't come before the committee very often, but certainly if you'd like to have him some night, he'd be happy to come in and talk with you.
Would it be worthwhile to change his title to the things that he's most working on, which is grants and energy versus economic development? Not to say that economic development isn't important, but it's not going to happen. And
Well, I mean, if you have that answer.
and leaving it as this title only puts his position under more scrutiny.
Right.
We're certainly happy to take a look at that. I mean, I think, I would probably agree that energy management and planning are probably much more highlighted roles he does. But we could consider the economic development maybe a subset, and he does work with the committee and tries to help new businesses come in, and I agree. I don't know if in the near future, we're going to be a Medway or a Franklin in any type of regard with respects to that, but he does assist businesses, even though they're few, in coming in here. So, but that's something we can certainly look
I
at.
just think that there are those of us, some of us in this room besides myself, that realize that economic development in the condition where we are geographically located and the land that we have. And the opportunities aren't there like those other communities. And people see that, and yet they still ask, why don't we have a commercial tax rate, et cetera, et cetera. And it's likely never going to happen. Sooner or later, somebody's gonna catch on to this, or not catch on to it, but just have that same level of critical thinking and scrutiny and say, why are we paying an economic development person where we haven't developed anything for commercial property in 10, 15, I don't know how many years. I just think sometimes words matter more than others. I don't know, to me, this is
Have a
not
different
just a quibble or a.
Give them more credit. Give them
I
a
think he's
credit.
worth more.
We can certainly look at the title. I don't personally have a problem in removing that extra title if you think it's, the optics are not good from that perspective. It's sort of something we can certainly look at. We're trying to cover all bases with that because he does do some work in that area, but I agree, of the three, it is probably the smallest of the three areas that he does work in.
One choice?
Yeah, is he full-time?
He is.
But he's.
But
this is
he's
half-time.
paid through two different budgets. He's also paid through town buildings as the managing
Okay.
manager.
Okay, because I was
Yeah.
wondering how he was getting paid $45,000 a year when a secretary, no offense, that's only working 24 hours a week is getting almost as much as.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, his
This is-
salary,
this is
his wages
half
come
of
from
his
two
Half of
different,
his hat,
two
okay,
different budgets. The town buildings budget is the energy portion.
okay.
Mike and then Kathy.
Yeah, I would disagree with my colleague. I think if we, no, I agree with you on a lot of things, but not on this one. I think, to think that we can't develop. We already are developing many new parcels for real estate, for housing. But to think that all of the land that we have can't be developed is foolish, I think. I know it can be. Whether or not somebody wants to do it, well, that's another matter. But can it be developed? Yes, it can be. And having seen this in other communities, new growth is always going to be the way out of getting some of our budget problems. New growth, bringing in new taxation is something that we should always be looking to do. So if it means, I don't know, I'm not really concerned about what his title is, but I think if you don't have anybody employed in the town under economic development, then I think you're putting up, the white flag. I don't agree. I think we should be putting more emphasis in real estate development and looking at things that should be developed as opposed to what's being developed right now in certain parcels, and encouraging, doing overlays. We can have overlay districts where, yeah, we do, but not all of them. We have some overlay districts, but we're doing them piecemeal. Looking at it from a comprehensive standpoint, we could do overlays all along 109, allowing different types of uses without, eliminating the current use, but giving people more opportunities to do something. Developers sometimes will not be looking to develop something if they've got to go through a whole process of changing zoning. But if you would develop overlay districts, it gives some of them the opportunity to look at that and say, hey, I can build this here. Maybe I want to build this here. Look, it's not really a discussion for tonight, but I did want to, make the second point to.
Okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
I'd just like to state that residential development is not good for growth. Because down the road, our schools become too small. And it is business development. And I, along with Mr. Kaczynski, we attended the kickoff meeting of the business development group. And the town received $100,000 grant. And quite frankly, Mr. Chair and members, I thought it was a waste of money. What can you do to bring business into town in Karen that hasn't been done in 30 or 40 years? What I said, spend the $100,000 and fix the potholes so people will want to come into Millis and shop. I mean, this putting money into business development, just to have someone it could be somebody, Karen's going to have extra jobs now without this HR. It could be something that she, again, investigates. But business development is just get the businesses in here. And I say keep the residences out because it's great, fast money now. But when you come in time to educate these kids and fire and police, the money ain't there.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
And also, this position was, 2 part-times was shared with the town. And I think the town stopped and we absorbed all of his salary. So it went from part to full-time.
Mr. Chair, would you want me to address that?
Please do.
Yeah.
Yes, when I arrived, the energy manager, Mr. Weiss, was here as part of a grant program, working both for Medway and the town of Millis. And then after 3 years, the grant stopped, and he did continue to work with us on the energy, side of it. And every year, he did, exceed his cost to the town through grants that constantly improved the energy efficiency of all the buildings in the community. And then we definitely had a need for a planner, and, you know, also an economic development person that we thought should be there to help new businesses or new construction in town. So that was added. I think that was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
That was added. And again, I believe it's been very successful. I understand that, you know, economic development in Millis is tough because of our geography here.
Mhm.
But certainly, I think to the extent that we can maximize our advantages and try to bring positive development into town, I think he's been key on that approach at a relatively reasonable salary and cost. And again, every year he's been here, he brings in grant money to the community. So obviously, as years goes by, it gets a little tougher in some areas because, you know, a lot of the low hanging fruit has been addressed as far as the energy. But again, we have a new school project coming up, and he just notified us today that there's possibility of getting an additional up to $1 million for that project, should we be able to meet certain parameters for energy efficient systems in that school. So that's something he's going to be working with the school building committee on, and trying to leverage some additional state grant money.
Thank you for that information.
Absolutely.
Oh, he does a good job.
All right, continue. We're still doing benefits.
Just kind of an overview of
Yeah,
the expenses.
our
I don't know if
expenses.
anybody has any particular questions. I'll just touch on a couple of the things that I think are highlights here. One of them is, if you look at the telephone, we're going from 19,000 down to 3,200. That's because we're actually, reallocating and putting the money for the phone system into IT. It's gonna be managed by the IT department. I'll also say that, Jim Donovan's doing a great job. He's been working with the schools. And we're gonna go on to a Zoom phone system. Right now, we're renting. We're gonna work with the school and get, some efficiency there because we'd be, through the buying power of working with the schools. So it's not gonna be 16,000 that we move over. It'll be less than that. So quite honestly, we'll see some savings there. The 3,200 is just for cell phone equipment, still for our office. Let's see. The only other things I would say, advertising, inflation, advertising has gone up considerably. We have to advertise in the paper due to procurement laws. And even if we're advertising for, which is crazy.
What paper?
Yeah, I suppose we have to do the state, put it in the Milford Daily News, and it is not cheap to put an ad in the paper.
Wow.
That's how they make their money.
But they still make us do it, so.
Newspapers have good lobbyists.
So, there's that, and then we're advertising for job openings. A lot of times we advertise through the Beacon. That's kind of the way. They're not inexpensive to advertise through. We do put it other places as well, but it's hard to find people these days. So anyway, just a small increase there.
Yeah.
And then equipment, has been various things for a while. We finally started putting money back into it because we use Oakland Sound for our 2 town meetings, and we had no place to pay that out of. It's $2,700 per town meeting for us to provide sound and microphones. So that is what that money is for. And then you'll see that the contract for the annual audit, that went up. Might fight for it to be less, and this is less.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just touch upon that briefly.
Yeah, do that, and then after that, the marijuana impact.
I know,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
yeah, I know it was brought up earlier this evening.
Yeah.
We did have a unexpected spike in our audit costs. And we are.
Do you know why?
Yes, the firm we had was bought out by a larger firm, and essentially their finance model required the higher cost. And we did it, and I will say they have done, you know, a great job for us in the past.
Okay.
but we pretty much have informed them that we will be shopping around,
Okay,
nothing personal.
Yep.
When our rates go up by that percentage over that short of time, it's really our fiduciary responsibility to at least look around the block.
so fiscal year 27, that number
So,
may be
so,
lower.
so we will, yes, so we will be searching, over the next several months and doing an ad to try to get, some, more competitive auditing bids. And we'll certainly keep you in the loop as that process goes on, but, the same company is wrapping up for this year. We did get them to,
Who's the company?
it's, Markham.
Okay.
And again, before that, it was, Melanson, and then before that it was Melanson Heath.
Gotcha.
It's just, yeah, the bigger companies keep eating up the smaller companies. But we have had the same, principal the whole time. Scott McIntyre was excellent. He was very apologetic for the price increase. He said it was really beyond his decision-making authority. And that they are having trouble getting qualified, auditors, without paying a much higher price for them.
I'm sure.
as of late. So that's
And
part
Mike
of the
did
cost
negotiate
driver.
this down,
I
70,000
did,
is down.
I did negotiate it down a little bit,
Kudos to Mike.
but, that's not something they said they could guarantee they'd hold for any length of time. So again, we have a good working relationship with them, but we also notified them we will be shopping with them.
Marijuana impact money? Consulting
Mr.
services?
Chairman, so we are, we do work with a company for social service work within the community. That is paid for with the marijuana impact funds. Up until this current year, we had it at 70,000. We've reduced it to 35,000. It's likely this is the last year. We'll certainly be able to fund it at that level. And we'll just have to see going forward, but how we will either try to work something into the budget in a future year, or unfortunately it'll have to be phased out. Something we're gonna look forward, we're gonna look going forward to see what can be done.
Go ahead, Joyce.
I just have a question as to how did it go from 13,900 to 71,983?
Which line
Yeah,
item
what
are
are
you
you
looking at?
The consulting service,
Oh.
it was 0, then 13,900, and then jumped to 71,983,
Back down.
then went down, and now to 35, and
She's looking at the consulting
Consulting
services.
services.
I was gonna say, the consulting services wasn't always where we paid the marijuana, where we paid Amy Leone out of, which is the community impact.
Oh, yes.
We had originally added the consulting services because I can't remember who it was, we had to hire a consulting service.
Yes, we had a small consulting service totally separate from this.
We added the line to have. Then we had to add it to bring in the mayor, then we
So,
had to pay
so
that,
it
yeah.
changed to
It's-
70 because it was a totally different reason we had it in there.
Right,
okay.
The 13,000 was a smaller consulting service we had. We'd have to go do some research to see what that was spent
Yeah.
on. But it was a specialized
Well, it
consulting
just looked,
service.
so, it's like, ooh,
right.
Yeah. No, it wasn't the
it's a good
same
question.
company. It was not the same company.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Pete.
is this the on-call social worker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Amy. Leone.
Yeah.
Leone,
Yes.
correct. So if you look at the last, you could, in FY 25 and FY 24, you can see. So we went for so last year we did the 35,000 as well, and it was 70,000 the year before when we had the full funding from the marijuana.
Okay,
Is she full-time?
No, but there's a certain, the main issue with a social worker is, they're available 24/7. So they are on call. There's a number of staff, so it's not like one person. There's a number of staff that are on call. They work with the police department, they work with others, they work with the school. And they deal with issues, on a regular basis. I think if you want to delve into this some more, the police chief works quite a bit with them. So he can talk in much more detail about the types of things they assist with.
So
Which,
it's her firm versus her.
yes, it's not a
Yeah.
person, it's a firm, so it's not an employee.
Okay,
This is a consulting, this is a firm we pay to do this work, that's why it's under a consulting line.
okay.
I made a note, so we'll follow up, Joyce.
Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Could you maybe in the future use the funds that the state gave you for opioid
Remediation.
for to pay for this as opposed to like, supplement because the marijuana impact funds are going away?
The short answer is yes, to the extent that those services are directly related to opioid related services. So if they had a certain amount for that, then that firm could go out and deal with people that are struggling with opioid related issues.
So I guess they'd have to come up with a percentage.
Yeah,
like
reasonable
how many
percentage
calls
because
related to-
right, we are required, and they're very strict about this, we're required to trace back the funds to a directly related opioid issue. But they do work in that area, so I've had discussions with our town nurse, Sarah Ward, and our health director about that. And that's something that we're looking into going forward, to be able to continue to use those services at some level through the opioid funds we get on an annual basis. And the finance director has informed me that our audit company currently is now called CBIZ. For anyone who might be familiar with that.
Like something you can get a roach with.
Yeah, all right, fair
No, that's
enough.
a racehorse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the IT division. Are there any other questions on the expenses?
I do not have any. I think we are good based on everybody, so let's continue.
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we'd be glad to come back in 2 weeks and
Yeah.
talk about town buildings, and the reason we're holding off on that is because we're making some structural changes there.
Okay.
On how and where things are paid. We don't wanna give a presentation and then have to come back in 2 weeks and say, oh, we changed these 2 or 3 things, so we're
That's
kind of in
fine.
the middle of these changes. So I think it makes more sense for the committee to hold off on that and say your next meeting. Again, at which point, stepping back and looking at the global picture, at that point, I think you'll be in a position to talk about, my overall budget recommendations, for the FY 26 budget, and, also with the finance director to talk about our revenues and where we sit.
Yep.
We have been having discussions with the superintendent of schools about that, keeping him in the loop to the, as we progress with that work. And like I said, 2 weeks from tonight, we feel we'll be in a position to kind of make that presentation to the committee.
So taking some old biz and bringing it up to you guys. I don't know if you're gonna leave or not after this, but can you shed some light on the Monday Amherst meeting that you went to, the Ways and Means Committee?
Yes.
Just a little feedback?
Sure. It was good. It was good. The room was full. They actually closed the room to the public for a little while because all the seats were full. I think there was probably, maybe 500 people in there, 400 or 500 people.
Wow.
There were 4 of us, it was the 2 of us, plus Bob Mulaney and Robin Briggs.
And Ellen.
And Ellen, sorry, Ellen, I forget Ellen.
Alan was there. We
Saw
saw
the sign.
I did, yeah.
Yes, and yes, they saw, because we couldn't see the speakers directly, we could see the legislators, we couldn't see the face of the speakers. We looked online to look at the YouTube feed and we could see where the camera was pointed and they went back with this little sign.
With the sign.
To get right in the picture. I mean, it was good. We didn't stay for the whole thing. I think the meeting lasted a little over 6 hours.
Wow.
We were only there for about 2.5, 3 hours.
They had 8 panels.
They had 8 panels. I don't think they got through all of them. They have a continuation of their hearing, I think, on April 8th in Boston. If anyone's interested to travel into our capital city to let our elected representatives know your thoughts. They do accept written testimony. I think it's, they don't really do questions from the general public.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
You gotta go.
Yeah, I'll go up to you.
Was there any discussion about projected growth? Did the Senate president say that this is what they're expecting? Because I know the growth projections for
Oh, for
FY
revenues?
25 is down.
Yeah, they didn't get into the detail
Okay,
of growth.
thank
What they
you.
were mostly talking about is just the needs of municipalities and
Okay.
schools and local aid payments.
Yeah.
And the big push at that meeting really had nothing to do with the general taxes. It had to do with the fair share amendment. And those taxes are coming in, tax receipts are coming in much higher than they predicted. The fair share amendment. Unfortunately.
That's a millionaire's tax.
Yeah.
Millionaire's tax.
Yes,
Otherwise known as millionaire's tax.
thank you,
Yeah. Unfortunately, and maybe I was the only one naive enough to think that how they would decide to share those funds. Instead of helping really the K through 12 funding or local roads and bridges, they anticipate using most of the funds for preschool, community college, free lunch,
Mm.
and the MBTA.
Oh, for goodness.
So it means there's not a lot of
Yeah.
money coming back to the cities and towns as part of this.
Yeah.
Which is very disappointing, to say the least. But one of the real pushes from both the Mass Municipal Association and the school business and school superintendent and school committee associations is for the state legislature to take a fresh look at this and say, maybe some of this has to come to help the formula through K through 12 school system, where there's, we're not the only town that's gone through cuts over the past couple of years. There were a lot of towns out there that talked about 20, 30, 40 staff people. This year, there's a lot of towns looking at very deep cuts. I mean, North Andover, there's a lot of other towns out there. And so the thought process is they could use some of those funds to help the 211, what they call the hold harmless towns, which is kind of a misnomer. But we are one of those towns, and it means that they basically flatline our state aid. They don't penalize us for if we lose students, but we also don't get any additional funds. All we get is whatever they have as a per pupil additional funding, and it ranges anywhere from $25 per pupil. Last year was $104, which basically gave us like $35,000 more, which is just pennies.
Yeah, peanuts.
Where other places, mostly gateway cities, poorer communities, they're getting, instead of 35,000, they're getting like 1.2 million in additional aid. So these, and again, not to take anything away from them.
Yeah.
But again, they're leaving towns like Millis behind, and
Yeah.
they're basically telling those towns, we consider you a wealthier town, you're just gonna have to figure it out. And pass an override or take other actions in order to balance your budget. So we're pushing back and saying the state is shirking its responsibility to these towns.
Yeah.
And if you look at the state aid numbers, over the past 7 or 8 years,
Yeah.
they're dismal.
And they will continue.
So, yeah.
I was gonna say, and we are
But
so
your
not alone, we
expenses,
know we're not alone.
GIC's gone up.
It was really good to go and see that everybody's saying the exact same thing, power in numbers. It was interesting, Amherst High School gave the kids the day off to go over. And they came in droves.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah,
It was quite something,
It was
but
very-
everyone that spoke said the exact same thing that we've been saying here in Millis all over.
So just to ride on this, one more step, the letter that I drafted to all the representatives that was sent in. And, James Arena DeRosa responded, and he will be joining us here at FinCom on 4/9. So I'll email you everybody, but, it'd be great to draft up some questions ahead of time. And, it's gonna be a busy night that night. But he'll be joining us.
That's excellent. And just to note that we did see Representative Vaughn.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually a member of the Ways and Means Committee,
Minority.
minority
Yes.
member. He might not
Because he's a
have the
Republican,
most
not
leverage
because
on the
he's black.
committee as
Yeah.
apparently, but he's a voice. He's a
Yep.
voice for us.
Yep.
And he certainly understood what was being said and the need, and he said he would work to advocate to help us out any way he could. And so, we're putting the word out there. We're hoping that, having that number of people show up at that hearing, at least get some notice. No guarantees that it'll push the Senate president or Speaker of the House to move on this stuff, because things are pretty much from the top down
Yeah.
there.
Don't know if
It takes a
don't
lot
try.
of push from their members to have them change direction, so we'll see how it goes.
I think Pete Ruby has one final question.
Two, real quick, do you have a new growth number? Is Joey still on? Is there a new growth number out there? Not yet, okay.
Yes, no.
And
official
then
growth.
next, does the town have any vacancies, either, do you know, across the town or the schools? And are you required to fill those?
For employees?
Are you hiring?
Yes, I'm not aware of any vacancies on the town.
Ish. We're hiring-ish.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the
The
schools. I
the only
can't-
thing that we are hiring right now, we have no full-time positions on the town side that I am aware of. There's a couple of little smaller positions, on-call library assistant, that type of thing, they hire, but nothing major.
Thank you.
We're really only filling in if we lose somebody.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing critical, and certainly,
And
you
there's no
know,
hiring freeze either.
No.
No, I can't say much for this. I will say the school is continuing to hire, but again, they have to hire if they lose a paraprofessional, there's something going on, they're just filling in where they have to. They're not adding positions.
And Mr. Chair, before the select board member leaves, can I ask a few questions of him?
Are they related to?
Yes, I would just like,
What are they related to?
Craig, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to know about, we have this human resources position, which was just brought up in the last couple of months. We've had a 2017 report that the DPW needs 4 employees. We've had police over the last few years looking for staffing and fire. Where does human resources all of a sudden, maybe you can hire all of them, Mr. Schultz?
Go ahead.
We can't hire all of them, we all know.
Yeah.
I think that it comes down to, we haven't reached a decision, so I'll speak for what's possible. The HR position, I think, is critical. You heard all the reasons for that. That's the top of the list priority for me, that whole department. I think we have plans to address a couple of the other ones that fit within existing budgets. I don't want to go into a lot more details till we get the committee on board with it, but I think it's unlikely we'll be able to do anything with police. But the fire, there is a possibility of ambulance revenues that are coming in far in excess of what we've talked about for fire. And we don't have the room to do 4 DPW, but we're trying to address something at DPW right now.
The 2 that you requested?
Something at DPW right now. Something.
Thank you,
I just
Craig.
want to make sure that, you know, people realize that there's been years that have been like capital planning,
Yeah.
figuring out these positions. And all of a sudden you're bringing in an HR that really doesn't have an office or staff yet or a location. So perhaps it could be put off while other issues are, my own
Yeah.
doesn't require.
I'm going to charge
Thank
Mr. Gazinski with coming up with an office plan prior to the next meeting, so that's off the table. There will be a place for this person.
I accept the challenge.
All right, thank you. And then as far as, I think that when you talk to the school, you talk to the select board, you talk to almost everybody who's been involved in this, knowing some of the issues we've faced over the last several years. The HR is, in my mind, just an absolutely critical.
It's more of a structural long-term.
And it's a long-term solution to a lot of issues. If we were not on GIS, GIC.
Insurance, yes.
That would be another option, but we can't even investigate those things yet. I'm not saying we will or will not leave it, but investigating it is gonna take a lot of time and energy and a professional doing it.
Thank you, Craig. Let's stop there. And let's move on to article assignments. Thank you both for tonight. Appreciate all your information and explanation and time.
Thank you.
We'll be back at your next meeting.
Chair?
Oh, yes.
You're excited.
And because
Can't
it's
wait.
new ones coming up, you want to go sign it tonight or? wait till the other ones are in?
Give it a shot. Okay, thank you, guys.
All right.
All right, so,
Thank you all 3. Good night.
let's take a crack at this. We have 21 articles so far.
Where are?
So is everyone have that sheet?
I know.
I think, I talked to Jen, she's fine if we delegate some articles to her. I think we should just go down the list and maybe just chirp out what you might do. Joyce, you said a few things last time that I didn't bring that sheet, so.
Yeah, I had mentioned that, yeah.
Is it the amend zoning bylaw?
I had mentioned wait a second, I can tell you in just a second.
While you're, yeah,
The article number 10, special act senior tax exemption.
Yep.
For the schools.
yep,
I'd also mentioned Article 11. That I'd be happy to do those 2. There was, and the sale of the town-owned property, because I'm familiar with all.
what number is that?
14.
Thank you. How about,
I mean, if somebody else wants to take 10 or 11, then I'll do.
Mike said he'll do 11 if that's okay, and you do 10 and 14?
Okay, that's fine. I've already started talking a little bit, but that's fine.
Okay, maybe you can share that with Mike then?
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I don't wanna.
okay, I'll do Article 8 for capital items.
And you should do 3.
You want to what?
You should do 3.
I should do 3, small item there,
Yeah.
yeah. Jody, do you have any, chirp in anybody, if
Should I take the insurance funds?
you want to do all 3 of those, Kathy?
If I could, sir.
Sure,
Which ones are those?
4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6.
I don't mind doing 15 and 16.
15, 16.
I like to hear myself talk, so I'd like to do number 7.
That makes one of us.
Oh, boy, we're getting really.
We're doing it, we got it,
We're
go ahead,
I'll
Sarah.
do
Can I do my usual 9?
We have,
Yes,
Then can I do,
oh, yes. Pete Underhill, get your horses lined up there.
Yeah, I have no
Um,
preferences.
Sarah, 4, 9.
Can I
and then
do
can I
12?
do 18 and 19?
Oh, not 8?
18, 19 is Sarah.
I thought you said 8.
Pete Underhill, I'm gonna come around to you, don't worry.
I'm not
I think
worried.
we have to move some people here. Mike, you said what?
12?
12. Tri-board. Pete Underhill? Do you
I'll
have
take
any,
whatever's left. I have no preference. I mean, I know we haven't done unpaid bills. It's a pretty straightforward one.
Yeah,
I could pick up 1 and 2 to kick things off and whatever's left over.
okay.
Yeah, that sounds
That's
good.
boom, boom. So we're down to 13. Let me give that to Jen.
Yeah.
OPEB. That's a Jen.
17.
Oh, I skipped over that.
And there.
Post-employment, Jen 17, is that what you just said?
Yeah,
Jody
17,
usually gets
13,
stable.
Yeah, I can
17.
close out with 20 and 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I already
So you're
have it
You're gonna
right
do
now.
22, Jody?
I could do 20 and
Oh,
21.
So
So
you
not
have
Jen.
4 maybe? Or you
Yeah.
actually have,
Yeah, I would have 4.
I only have 1, so anything,
Oh.
anything you want to give up.
Why don't you do OPEB?
there you go.
I'm very passionate.
There may be one coming up regarding some noise variances that I put out to the selectmen, so I'll take that one if it does come up.
Or is that conflict of interest?
Yeah, well, that's a good point too.
I don't know.
Depends on how we vote.
What's that?
Like it'd be like a citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I presented to the select board the opportunity for a warrant article that would limit the use of, commercial, landscaping equipment within certain hours, and certain days.
Like gas powered?
Gas powered.
Yeah,
For noise purposes. It's still,
Don't we already have that?
no, it's at the Board of Health now. They're looking at it. It will go before the selectmen probably on Monday, so I don't know if it's gonna happen or not.
Like they did that in
They did.
yeah.
Huntington, a whole bunch of communities are starting to do it now.
I don't
Oh.
think it's a bad idea. I just thought we already
No,
had
no,
a
that's-
noise.
As of now, you can get it if it comes on board. So just to go down, I'm gonna read it by number. Number 1 and 2 is Pete Underhill, I'm number 3, Kathy has 4, 5, 6, Pete Ruby has number 7, John Laura 8, 9 is Sarah, 10 is Joyce, 11 is Mike, 12 is Mike, 13 is Jen, 14 is Joyce, 15, 16 is Jody, 17 is Jen, 18 is Sarah, 19 is Sarah, and OPEB number 20 is Pete Ruby. And Jody, is number 21.
Who's 18?
Sarah, do you have too many or not? Are you okay with that? 1,
3.
2, you have 3, you're good. Just making sure.
Yeah, I mean.
Spread it.
don't
Been
make
here
me
that
talk
many
at all. I
years.
could just sit there and be like the anchor on the table, that's fine.
No, let me.
Like me.
All right, so we good on that?
Yep.
Okay, so then let's keep moving.
There'll probably be one for the provision that they're looking for. Is that gonna be a warrant article
Around anyway.
that they
Which
talked
one?
about tonight for the?
Position will just be,
Oh, I think that's under,
Consent
Pete Ruby's, it's under
Is that gonna-
consent.
Oh, is that gonna be under the consent?
Board of Health,
I didn't see it.
actually, I thought it was there.
No, I don't see it.
I didn't see it either.
It's an amendment to the personnel plan, maybe.
Maybe.
Actually, yeah, okay.
Schedule,
But
we'll
it
ask.
should be, it
we'll
should
find out.
be the creation of an, doesn't the town charter have to change and?
No, it's just adding an employee.
I don't think, yeah, we can find out, but I would hope Mike Kaczynski knows. Okay, appreciate that. Meeting approval minutes on, Pete Under, I'm just checking in with you. You good right now? I looked at everybody around here. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Like a recommendation to approve March 12th meeting minutes and the 19th.
So moved.
Second,
I have to do it individually. Please make a motion for March 12th, 2025.
So moved.
second,
So moved and seconded to approve the Finance Committee meeting minutes from March 12th, 2025. I'll go around. Was there anyone not here? Jen was not here, but I think everyone else was here.
Everyone's here.
Yeah. So, Sarah?
Aye.
Thank you. Joyce?
Aye.
Jody?
aye,
John? Aye.
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 Pete? Underhill?
Aye.
Thank you. And the other one was, oops,
Meeting March 19th.
yeah, motion.
So moved.
Second,
We moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from March 19th of 2025. Sarah?
Aye.
Jody?
aye.
John? Aye.
Aye.
Actually, I haven't finished those yet.
Yeah, I don't see them here.
Didn't see me there. I thought they were from before.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry, that was an old agenda. I'm really
That's all right,
sorry.
Go take a look at one.
We're so efficient, you just button it up.
Retract my own. Are you?
Okay, any liaison updates?
I have none really.
Zero liaison updates. We heard from Jonathan Berry tonight. And last, we have a few outstanding questions from school from the prior week. I'm still working on. And we have some questions from tonight. I think a lot of questions for the HR functionality of all three of those positions. So, and also let's get some questions together for James on the 9th. There's no meeting on the 2nd. We do have Tri-County coming in on the 9th as well, so it's gonna be a busy meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would you mind emailing a list of the articles so that we all know for sure who has what?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll talk to Deidre and we'll get that out, so
Thank
people
you.
can start researching. I'll take a motion.
Move to adjourn.
A motion second, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Nice. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chair.
Good stuff. That was a long one.
It
Springtime
was
meeting
very
from Cinco de
productive, though. It
Mayo.
was really informative
Go out
and
for
productive,
margaritas
and
and-
went well. And
And before.
I'm
I
glad.
don't know what year.
I don't know what,
No, we're gonna get through that.
no one's gonna know what's in my water bottle.
I think this-
Cinco de Mayo for town meeting, so margaritas. Yeah. You in?